It's so exciting to be chatting today with Jeff Celentano, the director of The Hill, and the subject of the film, Rickey himself, Rickey Hill. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really do appreciate it.
We really appreciate you supporting the movie. You seen the film?
I have, yes. It's very fun and very heartfelt. You can absolutely tell on screen. Um,
Did
I,
you get, did you get emotional?
I did. I did. Absolutely. It's one of those inspirational films that I mean, it's funny combining it with the game of baseball itself as well. I know it's obviously the heart of it is Rickey's journey with baseball, but there's something romantic about baseball itself as well on screen that can bring that out.
Hmm.
But how did the film come to be? I've heard it's quite a journey and quite a story.
It is. My brother was in a hotel lobby meeting someone for a business meeting, and Rickey was sitting directly next to him in the other chair. They didn't know each other, and Rickey was talking on the phone and talking about how he's struggling to get his movie made and meeting directors in Hollywood that he didn't like. They didn't have any faith. They didn't have any. They didn't have any. I don't know. They just didn't have they just didn't give him the image that they were the right people to make the movie. So he was frustrated, and he was out there from Texas, and a little bit out of his element. And my brother leaned over to him and said, "Sir, I'm so sorry. I just listened to your whole conversation." And Rickey was like, "Okay." And he said, "I have a guy for you that is the director for your movie. He's perfect. He's got all the qualities that you're looking for." And Rickey kind of gave him like a one-eye look, kind of a dirty look, like, "Yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times. And who the heck are you eavesdropping on my conversation?" And Mark said, if you know my brother, he can convince anybody of anything. And he turned to Rickey and he said, "Listen, I'm not kidding. This is the perfect guy. You found your director. Let's call him." So he made Rickey call me, and Rickey called me. And we just got along from the moment we talked on the phone. And I hadn't even read the script or knew anything about it yet. And I was a bit stunned because I'm like, "Mark, I got to read the script. I don't even know anything about this." I thought like Rickey did, like, this is not the director for my movie probably. And I thought this is probably a terrible script. And Rickey sent me the script that night, and they said, "You have to read it by tomorrow morning. You got to meet Rickey tomorrow." And I said, "Mark, tomorrow? I'm in the middle of 100 things." He's like, "Read the script tonight. Trust me, this is the right thing to do." So I read it, and I just fell apart reading it. I cried my eyes out. I always read a script like a little boy reading a story for the first time. I don't want to read it like a filmmaker or make notes or anything. I just read it. And it blew me away. And I called Rickey and I called him back after I read the script, and I said, "I want to meet with you." So the next day I met with him at the hotel, and we just bonded instantly. We connected automatically. And I put together a whole video presentation of what the movie is going to look like for him, because I believe in showing people, not telling them. I hate people to tell me what they can do. I want to see it. And so with that in hand, he went back to Texas to his partner and said, "I think I found our director." And from there, we ended up just getting together and how we're going to make the film. And we had some of the money at that time. That was 17 years ago.
Wow.
And it's weird, like Rickey and I were talking the other day, how fast 17 years can fly by, but it did. And, we had a lot of hurdles, a lot of roadblocks, to get a movie made that has sports in it and inspiration and all that stuff. They're harder than anything else, because if they're not made well, they just go onto the video. I used to call it the video graveyard, or the streaming graveyard now. And they never get heard from again. And I wanted to make a classic movie that everybody could remember for stand the test of time. I go back and I look at Rudy today, and it still holds up. I look at Hoosiers, it still holds up. And so I wanted to get that writer to write our movie. That was a huge mountain to climb. And I sought out Angelo Pizzo, and a friend of mine happened to know him very well. Carl Mazzacone, a producer friend of mine, said, "Let's call Angelo Pizzo, because I know him really well. And he owes me a favor." So we called Angelo and we sent him the script, and he said, "This is like a Hallmark movie, the script, but the story is unbelievable. I would love to get my hands on this." I said, "Well, that's why we sent you the script." And so he loved it and got involved in it and wrote the script that we see today, along with another writer named Scott Marshall Smith, who wrote Men of Honor and When the Game Stands Tall with Jim Caviezel. So that's how it all got to where it is today. It just was on this long road of the typical hurdles everyone faces, people trying to steal the movie from us, people trying to steal the movie from me, studios coming in saying, we're interested in talking to you about your movie, but we'd like to get rid of you, Jeff. We'll put you on as a producer and we'll pay you a bunch of money. And I said, no, I'm never going to ever let this movie out of my hands as a director. I know how to make this movie. I've made 12 movies or 11 movies. This is my 12th movie and I'm savvy. I just need a great script and great actors around me and enough money. And so that's how it happened.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
how it actually got made, physically made this last 2 years was another story, but I can tell you that in a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, certainly with the pandemic, that would have changed that. But before we get to that, Rickey, I'd like to hear from you because listening to Jeff here, I mean, it was clear that you wanted to tell your story, and first of all, it's got to be daunting to open yourself up that way. But second of all, it's clear that you had a vision for what you wanted the story to be. So I was wondering what aspect of your story was most important to you to bring to screen?
Well, you just said I wanted to tell my story. Actually, I really didn't. I didn't want to tell my story. No, I didn't. My brother wrote the story in 1976.
Wow.
Yeah, 76. He wrote the story just for our family, 56 pages long. And he wrote it for our entire family where they could pass it on down the road of what all happened in baseball, the love of the game, kids, wanting all them to know. And I even got to, I read the story myself, and it was so touching anyway that it really was. And then a man at our church read the story, and he took off with the thing to Hollywood. And then the next thing you know, within 6 months, they were calling me wanting to buy my story. And it's kind of a bad timing because my father and my mother both became ill at the very same time. My dad with pancreas cancer and my mother with a brain tumor. This was really a tough road. And the least thing that you really want to do is go do a movie about your family when you have two sick ones that you love so much.
Yeah.
And so, did I ask to do this movie? No, I did not.
What was your most important thing about this movie that you wanted me to convey, though?
Well,
your number one thing.
The number one thing that I wanted to take from the box office, or should I say, is the fact that we came a long way with this thing, and it's something that I didn't meet Jeff until 20 years later. I guess 20 years, right in that area. And then I just, as far as box office is concerned and me wanting them to take it away, I wanted to take it away that someone that was even had a disability, someone that had a desire, someone had the compassion that had you love this game of baseball, and you love everything about it. I wanted him to put it on the screen that it's not free. It's not free at all. It's something that you have to, you really
have to fight
to
for.
get there. You have to work for it every day. And I've always used this quote in the Bible: faith without works is dead. So you can have all the faith in the world you want, but if you don't have that work, it's dead. And the way I looked at it, I look at my whole life the same way. And So did he. He does the same thing. His faith in what he does is not dead. It's alive. It's active. It's blistering. It's working. And he, along with what I was trying, that I wanted him to put on the screen, he did exactly what I wanted him to do.
There were some moments that Rickey was frustrated because there were certain scenes that he wanted in the movie that happened in his life, certain times, things that happened. And I kept telling him, Rick, I'm here for you. I'm not discounting what you're saying, but the movie will be 5 hours long, you know? And he finally understood that. And I said, you know, it's like this. It's like, you know, they call it killing the babies in a movie. Like you have to take your babies and sacrifice, you know, give your babies away. It's like a little baby, you know, your child. This is movies like my child, and to not have certain scenes in it that I wanted as I was cutting was hard for me to give up. And it was hard for Rickey to give up those children that were scenes that he wanted in the movie. He didn't know how to do that. And I had to educate him all the time on how movies are made. And even up to when we were releasing the movie, you know, actually, let me go back. Rickey's a baseball player. He played professional baseball. I'm not going to question him about that, just like he's not going to question me about making movies. But when we were getting ready to cast the baseball players, Rickey's like, this is what I do. I'm going to cast the baseball players and I'm going to show you how it's done. And I'm going to help you with the movie. And I said, Rick, we have the best sports coordinator in the world. You know, Mark Ellis has done movies like he did The Rookie. Dennis recommended him to us. He did Miracle. He's a movie guy, Rick. It's a whole different thing. We got to get players who can play in movies, not just play the sport. And so he was still like, you know, we were still like butting heads a little bit. He was frustrated and he came down to the set and he stood for the tryouts. And Mark Ellis walks out on the field with a microphone and says, okay, it was about, I don't know, 100 people out there. And he says, if you weren't the number 1 or 2 player in your high school team or college, you can get on the bus and go home. And Rickey was like, wow, I'm back at boot camp. And Rickey turned to me with his face. He looked like he just saw a ghost. And he said, this guy's unbelievable. I could never do what you're doing. I said, you see all the coordination and stuff we have to do? He's like, all right, I'm giving up now. I surrender. You know what you're doing. And from that moment, I think the rest of the movie, he was just totally happy and understood that there's a process, you know?
Yeah, I will admit that I did think, okay, I can do all of this myself. I can don't tell me what to do about this until I saw him do what he did. And I went, man, I'm so glad that I'm not doing this. Woo! I felt like my second year of spring training in baseball, because spring training is a lot like being a Navy SEAL. I mean, it's just like there's nothing like it. People don't realize back then. Today they got it. It's a gravy train today. Okay, gravy train financially and gravy train every which way there is. But I'm telling you, I saw this guy come out there, and this guy was a Navy SEAL. The second he walked out on set, and I'm loving it. And I'm going, wow.
He wasn't nice and pulling. He's a really warm, nice guy. But when it comes to coaching or being that guy, he's tough.
And he knew the game, and he knew the game of baseball. And that's what I love, the fact he knew the game. And he knew the game so much that he was telling me who my roommates were, telling me who all the guys that I played against, and was telling me all these things I went to winter ball with, and telling me all these things. I'm going, holy smoke, this guy knows everything. It's amazing. He knows more than I know, you know. But saying that, it was a great thrill to have him, bring him in, because I didn't think we needed him. I thought I could do it all, you know, which I've always thought I could do it all. But in this one, I say, I stand corrected. I'll tell you that.
It's like Rickey's in the movie, you know. He plays the actual coach who cuts his own self. He sends his own self home. And in the high school game, in the tryouts, he's the guy who cuts Colin Ford. And Rickey never acted before, but he's got a vivacious personality, and I love him. And he said, I'm playing this part. He stole me. And I said, well, I was trying to find something for you. I don't know, Rick, it's a few lines. And, you know, when you get the camera on you and the lights and all the people around you, it all changes. He says, I got this. One take. He said, one take.
Well, y'all changed it.
Well, no. So we get out on the field, and it was about 4 takes. But
yeah, they changed the script on me though. They changed the script. So what am I supposed to do? Learn a script in 30 seconds?
He says we changed it, but to my recollection, it never changed.
They changed it
anyway.
Well, I
he
mean,
did such a good job as that character. I'm really proud of him in the movie, and I'm so glad that he told me I'm playing that part, because it's so great to have the real guy in the movie playing a part where he cuts his own self. And then, you know, having him with Red Murph, the scout that discovered Nolan Ryan, who Scott Glenn plays, was great. But in saying all this, what I don't want us to do is this is not a sports movie, as you saw. It's got sports in it, but it's a family film. It's I've talked to some people that don't like sports movies, and they've seen my film, and I said, if you saw an ad that said this is a sports movie, would you go? And they said no. I said, well, but you saw the movie and you loved it. They said, that's because it's not a sports movie. It's not about the sport. It's about this little boy trying to find the love of his father and what he goes through to get to live his dream. And everybody can relate to that. And that's how you have to tell people about this movie, Jeff, because if you sell it as a sports movie or a faith movie, it's got all that in it for all audiences. And so that was the goal. And it was hard. Honestly, it was really hard to find that fine line of having enough faith in it where it didn't turn anybody off who wasn't a believer, and having the people who hate sports love it too. You know, Dennis Quaid says a great thing in the behind the scenes. He says, you know, the greatest thing about sports movies are when they're not about the sport themselves, you know, and that was kind of the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. That comes across because this is very much a film about a father and a son and achieving dreams, for sure, as you just said there. Which actually, I want to explore that a little bit. I was wondering because, I mean, you know, Rickey, this is a story. This is a story where your dad, as a pastor, just refuses to acknowledge the power of the game, or draws a hard line. Seems to draw a hard line between faith and action, or faith and baseball. I was wondering if you could talk about that experience, and maybe even we can talk a little bit about why churches can put a dividing line on these things, because it's not just sports that the church can say that doesn't count. There are other things too, even the arts. You can see that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, my father, my dad, you know, he didn't mind me playing. He didn't mind me playing baseball at all. He didn't mind me playing at all, just as long as it didn't get involved in the way of the church. Okay, he didn't mind that at all. But then again,
at first he did. At first he wouldn't allow him to play until you see that scene where Rickey came to him and said, "I can't do one without the other."
Yeah, yeah. What I mean by that, he wasn't trying to be hard on me, but yet he had his boundaries only went so far, and he wanted me to be a preacher. Of course he did, like him. But I kind of reinforced that for him myself, because I go out and do the same thing. I go out and preach a sermon out there to nobody even out there in the crowd, or anybody who listened outside, out in the yard, and just practice preaching like him. And now he enjoyed all that until all of a sudden baseball is my love, and it's something that I'm good at, and you can't take it away from hitting all those rocks that I hit for all those years, that I developed a swing that was just honestly, I don't mean this braggingly, but I had one of the best swings in baseball, and it's proven by several major league managers that said that. Even though I got cut short in my career, they let everybody know that my swing was developed right. Now, I don't know how you develop a swing swinging rocks, but some reason you do.
Yeah, he hit like 2,000 rocks a day.
Yeah.
Because he was super bored and poor on those railroad tracks have those little gray rocks all over there. He would stand in the middle of those, and his brother would pitch to him, and his sister would catch, and he would hit these things all day long. And he actually started liking it, where he was addicted to it. And he would talk to his brother and say, "Come on, let's go hit some rocks." His brother was like, "Oh, all right, again." And Rickey was out there for 10, 16 hours a day. Sometimes they had to go find him. And he just got so good and accurate that he could aim it. He could aim a rocks. What, of course, transition into baseball was easy. He could aim the baseball.
Yeah, well, finally, when I got a bat in my hand for the first time, really for the first time, and hitting a ball,
it was like hitting a watermelon.
So easy. Wow. It's just so easy, and it just came natural. And so at the same very time, my dad wanted me to be a preacher because I had that ability too. I had that same ability. Yeah. But yet the love of the game of baseball is when you've got it, you've got it.
Tell him the story real quick about you climbing the wall and everything.
Okay.
Because in the movie, Colin comes into the stadium. He walks in. That's not what Rickey did.
That's not what I did. I had basically already been cut from the camp. The camp was not really cut, but the camp was over. They have one finale, huge, big game, which is the biggest thing of all. The whole A&M University, all these people, they all come out to watch, and to watch the big game. And the crowd would probably hold 8,000 to 10,000 people. Those stands would, and it'd be full too. And but that day, I turned around. I went back to that stadium. And I climbed the 10-foot wall, went over the wall, even with a bad leg, went over the wall, went out to the pitcher's mound to Red Murph. And
crying his eyes out.
Yeah, I'm sitting there telling Red, and I looked at Red and told Red, I just let Red know. I said, "Listen, I'm the best hitter here in this camp, and it's a shame you're never going to get to see it." Well,
I wondered if that had happened, actually. I wondered if that was just story or whether that was part of it.
It happened in a bigger way.
It happened in a bigger way.
And what did Red Murph say to you?
He said, "Let me tell you something. If your bat is attuned with your tongue, you're a hell of a hitter." This made Sports Illustrated too, by the way.
And then what did he say to you about where you were standing?
Then he says, "By the way, do you know where you're standing?" I said, "No." He looked like he was 6'12".
He said it to him kind of angry, it was intimidating.
Yeah, intimidated me because he intimidated the snot out of me. And so I'm sitting there and said, "No, I don't." He said, "You're standing on the hill." Because the pitcher's mound is the hill. Who's on the hill tonight pitching? Who's on the hill pitching? Who's on the hill pitching? That's all we ever say in the dugout. Who's on the hill pitching tonight? And so anyway, saying that, he kind of knocked me down a little bit, tried to see if I could handle it. He said, "So you're sitting here right now telling me that you're the best hitter in this, that you think that you're the best hitter in this camp?" And I said, "No, sir, I'm not." I said, "I know I am."
Wow. That's amazing.
With tears coming down his face, which I think got to him.
Yeah, which tears coming down my face, because those are pretty bold statements to say. And we're at the 9 scouts behind him, because the thing had ended. The camps have ended. They got one big game left that night, like we said, one big game. And I'm not going to be in it. And he turned around, and that's when he told the scouts to shut up behind him. And he looked at me and he said, "Something is telling me that you very well could be the best hitter in this camp. I don't know what it is. I have no idea, but you've got me convinced." He said, "Come back tonight." He goes, "By the way, where's your uniform?" And I said, "You're looking at it." He goes, You've been playing and not that?"
He had no money, so he had no.
Well,
like an old T-shirt.
I had an old ragged T-shirt,
duct tape shoes.
Duct tape shoes, and I had a pair of Sands belt cut off polyester shorts that look like a, I look like an idiot out there on nothing, not one thing matched. And he said, get him a uniform for tonight's game, and let him get him a neutral shirt to play in tonight, and the neutral shirt, because he's going to DH for both pitchers. Now that's a challenge.
It must have been. That's incredible. I mean, the idea that you would be playing for both teams,
yeah,
the same game, is unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. I had to call my dad at home and said, Dad, I can't believe what's happened here. This is flooring me. This was on a Sunday afternoon. And the rest of the story, I know Jeff wants me to keep quiet, but
we can't tell the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't want to tell the
Dennis was blown away when he read the script. He said, did this kid really do this? Like, I've never heard of a story like this. This is incredible. I said, he really did. I can prove it, Dennis. I have all the documentation. So he said, wow, I don't know why this story hasn't been told sooner. I said, you know how it is. Yeah. Everything's trying to stand in your way of doing something great. As a guy said to me earlier today, he said he felt that he doesn't promote movies that he doesn't love. He doesn't think can help people. He said, this movie is doing nothing but spreading goodness to the world. That's what he said. And I was like, wow, I couldn't have said that better. That was my goal anyway. Hopefully you felt that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You had said before, I just want to circle back though, Jeff, you talked about the challenges of shooting during COVID. I just wondered, you said that there was quite a story there. I wondered what you meant.
Yeah, no, it was getting the movie financed. This guy, I had a phone call from a producer friend of mine. Hey, can you coach this guy? He's our investor and he wants to be in our movie. And I was like, okay, weird. So the guy comes down to Laguna Beach where I lived at the time. We go have lunch. I coach him at my house. We go have lunch after. He says, what do you got? You have anything you're doing? And I said, yeah, I have this incredible movie. And I pitch him the story, pun intended. And he says to me, this is the most incredible story. Our 1 hour lunch turned into a 3 hour lunch. He said, I'm so captivated. I want to get your movie made for you, and I can do it in 3 weeks. And I laughed, and I just like Rickey laughed at my brother. I laughed at him and said, I've heard that 100 times. And 3 weeks later, I get a call from his partner, Michael Hollinsworth, who had a client named Ron Cundy. And he said, Jeff, I have a guy on the phone right now. I'm going to patch him in, pitch your story. Don't go over 15 minutes. Just tell him your story from your heart. And that's all I want you to do. So I met Ron. I pitched him the story. He got emotional. I got emotional. I don't know what happened to me. I pitched it 1,000 times and, I just had it in me. And he said, can I call you back in 10 minutes? I was like, that's not a good sign. Okay. He got off the phone and 8 minutes later, he called me back, I think 5 minutes. And he said, Jeff, I want to fund the whole movie.
Wow.
He was only going to put $1 million in to start us off, but he wanted to take the whole movie. He said, I want to own this movie for life. I love this story. And I'm not going to get in your way, and I'm going to let you make the movie you want. And I couldn't believe it. I said, Ron, I am so just spent from trying to get this movie made. Are you honest with me? And he said, I am honest with you. And I said, when do you think the funds will come? Because that's the next question. And he said, how about tomorrow? I said, whoa, wait a minute. We don't have the bank account set up, and the production company needs to be, the operating agreement needs to be done. But let me get that done in a week. And then when could it come? And he said, in 10 minutes after you call me. And in 10 minutes, all the money was in the bank. Not a little bit, not partial, all of it. And that was during the COVID, during the COVID era. We had to wear masks and we had to do all that stuff. It was a nightmare, but we got through it. And this was a movie of all movies that you didn't want to have that barrier with wearing masks and all that stuff. You needed that connection to people. But because the crew was so amazing and the cast was beyond perfect, everybody didn't care. It was like the masks weren't even on us. So that was how that happened.
That's incredible. That is absolutely wild. And
he was the right guy, because I probably wouldn't have been able to make the movie I could have made having somebody over my shoulder the whole time, nitpicking everything I did. This guy let me just freely from the beginning to the end make the movie I wanted to make. And that's why I think it turned out the way it did, because I had it inside me. He saw that. Still today, he's my friend, and I made a joke to him the other day. He said, "How you feeling? It's coming out in 2 weeks." And I said, "Well, I feel like there's a pendulum hanging over my head. I just want it to be successful for you." And he said, "No, you don't have a pendulum. You have a guillotine."
I hope that's a joke.
And I laughed, and he laughed, and he said, "Jeff, I absolutely love this movie. I have nothing to say to you other than I am on your team, and I don't care. This movie's going to go where it's supposed to go." His faith was super strong in the movie, and he knows that it's out of my hands. It's out of our hands. It's in somebody else's hands. It's in a higher power's hands. And it's already taken off the way, having people like you get behind it. We have no cast to do press. We're doing it on our own. And it's working. I mean, it's becoming a word of mouth movie. And, just going to Lakewood Church tonight, showing it to all those people. I mean, they're embracing the movie. They love it. I mean, I don't know how you cannot. I mean, I've never met anybody that didn't love the movie, not because I'm the director, I made it, but if you don't love this movie, you just don't love goodness. Really, because I feel like it does that to me. It does it to me every time I watch it, and I've watched it 100,000 times. And if you ask me that on any other movie I've done, I love all my movies and I put my heart and soul in them. But I was done watching them after the first screening. I just had too, when you do a movie, you've read the script 1,000 times, you shot the movie, you've edited it, this movie, I could watch it forever. I hope that everybody feels the same, and they watch it once and want to watch it again. I had a journalist watch it, and then after I told her the story, she went back. She said, "I'm watching it again. I want to watch it again." So anyway,
it has that quality. It has that quality that you can watch it and rewatch it again. That inspirational family film aspect that is, I like that you said before, it's in sports, but that's not what it's about. And absolutely pops in that way. We're running out of time. I could do this forever, but I want to let you guys breathe, because I know you've had this long day.
Yeah.
But I would just love to know, as we wrap up, what it is that you hope people take away from The Hill.
I just hope that they walk out of that theater and they feel like their life has changed, or they can do anything. Every kid that sees it, or every person that's going through a struggle or hard times like we all are, that they feel different, because you're giving me 2 hours of your time and you're spending money. And when you come out of that theater, you better be entertained and also feel something that changes you inside. You could have the worst life right now, and your life could just be going downhill. And if you go see The Hill and you come out, you're like, wow, that kid did that, and he was way worse off than I was. That's what I want people to take away. I just want them to be inspired and uplifted from it. And when I screened this movie in Charleston for a test screening, I mean, everybody was crying in the theater. I could hear sniffles throughout. And some lady, I was walking to the bathroom, she came running back and out of the bathroom, and I saw her, and she was all panicked. She said, "I'm just going to the bathroom. I held it for an hour." I was like, "I don't care. I mean, that's sweet." And then an old man came up to me and grabbed my arm and said, "You touched my heart. I have not seen a movie like this in Field of Dreams." Mm. And he was this old man, if I could show you him, if I could put him on the poster, everybody would understand what this movie's about, because that did something to that old man. He said, "I have not seen a movie this good since Field of Dreams. You moved me, son." And he had tears in his eyes, and that wrecked me. I was like, whew, incredible. So that's what I hope people get out of it, what that old man got out of it, that they felt like they saw something special.
Absolutely. Rickey, what about you as we wrap up?
Roughly the same thing, identical. We speak right along beside each other. I feel the very same way. If they walk out there and a young kid can see something that he had never seen before, a challenge that, don't be afraid to take that big challenge on. because it could always be worse. Could be worse like me. You could be in having legs like I was born with, having a spine like I was born with, and me still never quitting. I never even thought about it, giving up. I mean, the doctors at age 17 told me to quit playing baseball, quit. And
I don't know if you saw this movie, Bleed for This, that Angelo Pisa wrote. It's a boxing movie with Miles Teller. I saw it the other night. It's got such a similar line. That guy was in a head brace with screws screwed into his brain, into his skull. And they said, you might not ever walk again, just like Rickey, let alone ever box, because your spine is severed, right? If it's severed right here, you're gone. And he started training, if you remember that movie, and he went back and he did it. That movie blew my mind. I was like, wow, there's people out there like Rickey that I haven't heard. I never heard that story. And I didn't even know Angelo wrote it. His name popped up on the screen when I got done, and I was like, wow.
Oh, he wrote that film as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's a great film too.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It is a privilege to speak with you. Jeff, Rickey, thank you. I really appreciate it. I wish you the best. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for.